Thieves don't always work in pairs. Sometimes theft can be the result of a criminal acting alone, prizing financial gain above any consideration for the feelings of his victims. That's what happened in Croydon, South London, with a catalogue of robberies that shocked a community.
How someone could commit a crime like this, it's absolutely appalling in my view.
And the cold-blooded actions of an unscrupulous local businessman who dealt in the spoils of Graveside robbery.
He is a very calloused man who has no feelings whatsoever for what he does to other people.
He was unaware that police were about to catch him out with cutting-edge tracking technology invisible to the naked eye.
It's showing SmartWater on the cutting blades.
This shameful tale of grave desecration began back in 2011, when a relative visiting Croydon Cemetery made a sad discovery.
A member of the family came into the office, stated that their plaque was missing. A member of my team went out to the area to look at it, and we found that a whole rose bed of bronze plaques had been taken, and that hit us straight away. We realised that some major crime had taken place and a number of memorials had been taken.
We're not talking a handful here, but 900. Yes, 900 plaques worth roughly £150,000. Nothing was saved from the thieves, not even war memorials.
The impact that this sort of crime has on families is immeasurable. People are at all different stages of their bereavement journey, and the impact can hit them as greatly as it did on the day that they first had the bereavement. People just couldn't believe that someone would stoop to those levels.
This bout of grave robbery soon came to the attention of Sergeant George Shannon. He's a key figure in Operation Ferris, a nationwide clampdown on metal theft, which the police estimate costs our economy more than £700 million a year.
Metal theft is the second biggest crime generator in the world after drugs. The actual metal theft itself is undertaken by a variety of people, from the desperate to feed drug problems to organised crime.
Following a tip-off from trading standards officers, the police began to investigate a scrap metal dealer in Croydon. He seemed to have no scruples when it came to buying bronze plaques fresh from the graveside. His scrapyard was just a mile away from the cemetery. Maybe just a coincidence?
40% of all our metal thefts were within half an hour walking distance of this yard, which is disproportionate for a borough the size of Croydon.
His actions were so despicable that they even shocked other criminals.
For an example, one person gave us information, said, whilst I may be no angel, I don't believe in chopping up war dead plaques. He's gone too far.
In May 2012, the police mounted a raid on the yard to bring this unpleasant trading to a halt.
And this is what is left of the yard now at the moment. This is where it all took place.
Sergeant Shannon takes us back to the scene of the crime. Now an empty shell, it was once a hive of criminal activity. The police found more than 400 bronze plaques. They were all seemingly stolen from local cemeteries.
People were shocked. Even a lot of experienced police officers saying no one's going to be robbing from graves in 2012, and the sheer quantities they were doing it in for the sake of a relatively small amount of money.
The crooked dealer had been paying as little as £1 for each plaque, well below its true value. But that hardly matters when you consider the emotional damage he'd been causing.
There was plaques that had been there for 20 years to ones that had been there less than a year. Very touching and kind of moving us. People had recorded when they had a stillbirth and the child was born. Down at the back of the yard, we found memorial plaques in the process of being chopped up.
A vain attempt to disguise the stolen memorials before selling them on.
He knew exactly what he was doing, but just didn't care.
By chopping up the plaques, he thought he'd get away with it. What he hadn't realised was that some of them had been marked with an invisible tracking system called SmartWater. It glows under ultraviolet light.
Each bottle of SmartWater contains a unique forensic code that is registered to the individual owner of each bottle and can be applied to almost any item.
Samples of the chemical taken from stolen property can be tested back at the lab to help trace its origin.
The SmartWater was already on the memorial plaques marked by the graveyards. The trace elements were also showing where the various machines had chopped the plaques up, so it formed a continuous link. Evidentially, it's quite important.
The scrap dealer was also unaware that police had laid a trap for him, coating a lorry load of supposedly stolen high-voltage industrial cable with this invisible tracking liquid.
We marked it into 3 delivery slots, each marked with SmartWater. Through his greed, paying way below market value for the goods, he accepted the goods knowing them to be stolen. We found evidence of all 3 deliveries at the yard when we raided it.
The police uncovered a whole host of stolen goods at his yard. The profits from his disgraceful dealings soon became all too evident. But this shady metal trader treated his arrest as just a minor hiatus in his illegal activity.
The reaction of the owner was completely deadpan, no remorse whatsoever, casual indifference to the whole situation. If this yard was not turning a blind eye to the people who were selling it, those graves would not have been desecrated.
Ironically, the dealer's own CCTV footage has him banged to rights, overseeing the destruction of the memorial plaques. The rogue metal merchant was sentenced to 15 months in prison. Perhaps not as severe as some of his victims would have liked, but hopefully they take some comfort in knowing that the crook has been brought to justice, preventing other families from suffering similar losses.